The dark sides of Russia-Ukraine war. People dare not to talk widely. The persistent and escalating conflict between Russia and Ukraine. An examination of its underlying complexities and challenges in achieving resolution. Greetings and welcome to the present video, in which we will engage in a discussion about the underlying causes and persistent nature of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, an analysis of its intractability. Prior to delving into the aforementioned topic, it is imperative that you subscribe to my channel and activate the notification bell symbol in order to get alerts whenever I release a new video. If you find this video enjoyable, kindly express your appreciation by giving it a positive rating and sharing it with your acquaintances. The protracted nature of the fight, with limited prospects for prompt settlement, has resulted in the U.S. military-industrial complex becoming the beneficiary of the war's gains. The arms trade between the United States, Europe, and Ukraine has resulted in significant financial gains for weapons makers. According to experts, the act of sending more would simply exacerbate the ongoing worldwide conflict. When a military lacks professionalization, it is prone to a higher frequency of errors. According to Homestead, there seems to be an excessive use of artillery, particularly when it is being distributed without cost. The rate at which the Ukrainians are using their artillery exceeds what would typically be expected. In the ongoing conflict, the United States has provided Ukraine with a substantial military aid package of $37.6 billion, surpassing all other nations in terms of the magnitude of assistance supplied to Ukraine. According to analysts, the Pentagon's intention to enhance weapons sales to allies as a means to rival China indicates a continuous trajectory, with no foreseeable conclusion. In a significant development, the European Union, EU, has provided Ukraine with a substantial amount of €4.6 billion, $5 billion, in military assistance. This notable event signifies a historic milestone for the EU, as it is the first instance in which the bloc has supplied weaponry to a nation that is not a member of the organization. The United Kingdom has committed to provide £4.6 billion, $5.7 billion, in military aid, and has set a target of training 30,000 Ukrainian individuals by the conclusion of the current year. Ukraine has placed significant reliance on the acquisition of advanced military weapons from Western sources in its pursuit of achieving victory. However, while the protracted struggle persists without immediate prospects for a settlement, it is the military-industrial complex in the United States that reaps the benefits of warfare. Who are the beneficiaries of the war? Approximately 15 months after the commencement of Russia's invasion, the ongoing struggle has evolved into a protracted war characterized by attrition. Given the issuance of an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court against Russian President Vladimir Putin, the absence of willingness to engage in negotiations, accusations of committing war crimes, the exchange of personal insults, and the absence of any visible peace negotiations, it seems probable that the conflict will continue to persist. Thus far, the battle has mostly benefited American military manufacturers. The prolongation of the conflict has been attributed by officials from Russia, China, and the European Union to the United States, who are believed to be benefiting from the situation. The European Union, in particular, is estimated to require €175 billion, $190 billion, to address price increases, supply chain disruptions, enhance energy independence, support refugees, and strengthen defense capabilities. According to an unidentified European Union official who spoke to Politico in November of the previous year, it can be seen objectively that the United States is the nation benefiting the most from this conflict. This is mostly due to their increased sales of gasoline at elevated rates, as well as their heightened arms trade. Despite a decrease in public backing for military expenditure and the prolonged nature of the fight, the valuation of American weapons makers has seen a significant surge since the commencement of the war. Following the incursion by Russia, there was a notable increase in the market value of Raytheon Technologies. The market capitalization surged from $128 billion at the commencement of the year to $155 billion in the subsequent weeks. In 2022, Lockheed Martin started the fiscal year with a valuation of $98 billion, which subsequently increased to $127 billion at the conclusion of the year, becoming the company's highest recorded value. Northrop Grumman started the fiscal year with a total revenue of $61 billion, which subsequently increased to $84 billion by the conclusion of the year. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing serve as significant sources of profit for major corporations. Currently, it can be seen that they are capitalizing on the prevailing trend. Officials from the Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, and the European Union have levied accusations against the United States, claiming that it has deliberately extended the duration of the battle for its own advantageous purposes. According to data provided by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, there has been a notable rise in global weapons exports by the United States, with an increase from 33% to 40% between the years 2018 and 2022, as compared to the preceding 5-year timeframe. In Russia, there has been a notable rise in military expenditure, with a substantial growth of 175% seen between 2000 and 2019. However, it is important to note that the current military spending of Russia amounts to $65.8 billion, which is much lower when compared to the United States military expenditure of $801 billion. The United States has just granted approval for a transaction valued at $10 billion, including the sale of ammunition and the high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, to Poland. The HIMARS had the capability to achieve a range of 50 miles. Ukraine has been allocated a total of 20 units, each estimated to have a minimum value of $5.1 million, with further units pledged. Lockheed Martin, the manufacturer of HIMARS, is operating at maximum capacity. The company has had a notable boost in its output, particularly in the pace of automobiles manufactured. The allocation of funds for this matter is projected to span the next 10 years within the United States military, so resulting in a potential budget of about $1 trillion for the current fiscal year. This figure is the greatest budgetary allocation in history. European enterprises are also seeing financial gains. In Germany, which has the greatest military expenditure among all European Union member states, Rheinmetall, a weapons manufacturer, had its highest profits this month. The CEO of the business expressed optimism about a new era for the organization. The company had a significant increase in earnings, with a notable gain of 27%, and witnessed a substantial growth in its shares, which surged by 55% within a span of 1 year. However, the beneficiaries of the conflict extend beyond military companies and weapons makers. Energy businesses have also been benefiting financially by increasing their energy delivery to Europe in response to the reduction in Russian gas supplies. In 2022, the United States accounted for 60% of Europe's liquefied natural gas supply, while Russia, which formerly had a market share of 40% to 50%, saw a significant reduction in its shipments to the European Union, now standing at 12%. Even President Joe Biden of the United States has made allegations against oil firms, accusing them of engaging in war profiteering because to their substantial financial gains. A recent research conducted by Greenpeace and the non-profit journalism venture Lighthouse Reports sheds light on the manner in which firms have both financially benefited from and contributed to the worldwide food crisis subsequent to Russia's invasion. According to their findings, the top 10 hedge funds globally generated around $1.9 billion in profits from their trading activities involving wheat, maize, and soybeans during the period surrounding the invasion. Can an increase in the number of weapons lead to the establishment of peace? Ukraine is a country located in Eastern Europe. President Volodymyr Zelensky has consistently advocated for Western countries to augment their provisions and expedite their distribution. In February, he addressed the British Parliament, expressing that the provision of combat aircraft to Ukraine will serve as a means to uphold and safeguard freedom. During his visit to Paris in the same month, he emphasized to French President Emmanuel Macron the notion that an accelerated production of weaponry would lead to the cessation of the war. However, there is a lack of consensus among specialists on this matter. According to Hartung, the notion that increasing the speed and complexity of weaponry would lead to the cessation of conflict via a military triumph is very improbable. Therefore, it is essential to explore other avenues. The focus should not just revolve around the process of manufacturing weapons. Ni Brian expresses her uncertainty by questioning the efficacy of deploying armaments to conflict zones, as she queries, has the act of supplying weaponry to war-torn areas ever successfully halted the ongoing hostilities? Both experts believe that there is potential for the United States and Europe to undertake more efforts in fostering diplomatic initiatives with the aim of facilitating a peaceful conclusion. According to Hartung, it might be argued that this is now the most promising prospect. It is justifiable to engage in diplomatic initiatives in order to explore potential avenues for resolving conflicts, rather than resorting to a continuous cycle of arms proliferation. To what extent has the deployment of military forces in conflict areas effectively curtailed ongoing hostilities? Ni Brian highlights the peace process in Ireland, her place of origin, by emphasizing the need of compromise. She suggests that there comes a juncture when recognition of the need for concessions becomes imperative. The author also raises concerns about a perceived tactical approach of progressively supplying Ukraine with weaponry, with the intention of extending the fight without intensifying it. This is shown by the recent provision of tanks, despite earlier appeals for their delivery at the start of the conflict. The individual inquires as to why, if there was a genuine belief that tanks were the optimal remedy, they were not deployed a year before to swiftly resolve the whole situation. What is the rationale for this gradual escalation? Given the substantial financial gains being generated, one cannot but contemplate the underlying dynamics at play. The immense power wielded by the military-industrial complex. In his farewell speech in 1961, former U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower expressed concern over the undue influence exerted by the military-industrial complex in advocating for escalating levels of expenditure. The military-industrial complex, which refers to the interdependence between a nation's armed forces and the weapons manufacturing sector, has seen significant growth. However, he observes a lack of apprehension in Washington over the defense industry's influence on politics. Lockheed Martin, a prominent corporation, receives a substantial annual budget of tens of billions of dollars for the production of weaponry. This financial allocation surpasses the scale envisioned by President Eisenhower during his tenure. The United States military budget has about doubled from the time of Eisenhower's speech. Even after accounting for inflation, it seems that you own a more extensive military-industrial complex. According to Hartung, the arms business exerts more influence on the government via a range of lobbying strategies. The diplomatic, economic, and cultural facets of statecraft exhibit a lack of development, while the military sector receives a disproportionate allocation of financial resources. Political actors engage in the practice of providing financial support, often referred to as campaign donations. The organization employs individuals who have previously held positions inside the government. According to the individual, these entities provide financial support to think tanks, adopt aggressive stances, participate in government committees responsible for determining perceived risks, and afterwards benefit from resolving these identified threats. Weapons are often featured in Hollywood movies, so exerting an influence on both the cultural and political spheres. These acts contribute to the increase in budget allocation and the heightened probability of military intervention due to the disproportionate emphasis on military funding. As elucidated by Hartung, while the diplomatic, economic, and cultural tools of statecraft remain relatively undeveloped, Ukraine is being used as the justification for the implementation of long-standing plans that both the business and the military have already devised and have been awaiting funding for. There are several factors being advocated for that would have a lasting impact on the magnitude of the United States military-industrial complex. According to a report published in November 2022 by the Transnational Institute, County, authored by Ni Brian, lobbyists have leveraged the Ukraine conflict not only within the United States, but also in other countries to enhance the public perception of the arms industry. These lobbyists have sought to portray the industry's activities as crucial for safeguarding public safety, and have advocated for increased arms exports, despite existing restrictions. Companies such as Lockheed Martin, Airbus, and Rheinmetall, who stand to benefit from heightened military expenditure, jointly paid over €12 million, $13 million, towards lobbying efforts directed at German lawmakers. According to the research, member states of NATO and the European Union have used the ongoing conflict as a means to camouflage their actions of replenishing, growing, and upgrading their respective arsenal stockpiles. Additionally, they have exploited this situation to manipulate and modify existing norms pertaining to arms trade. Consequently, these actions have contributed to the proliferation of unchecked militarism and the emergence of a fresh arms race. The enduring impact of weaponry exports in the post-conflict era. The act of expanding weapons exports has the potential for unforeseen and lethal ramifications that possess a global reach and are very difficult to monitor. Military gear, like as the equipment now being sent to Ukraine and NATO partners, has the potential to remain operational for extended periods of time, sometimes spanning many decades. According to Nie Brian, the durability of both the Kalashnikov and HIMARS is estimated to be around 5 decades. The durability of arms is characterized by an extended period of use. Before the invasion by Russia, Ukraine has one of the largest illicit arms markets in Europe. This prompts the inquiry: what is the fate of these weapons after the fight reaches its conclusion? In the event that the fighting ceases in the near future, will Ukraine undertake the return of all missile launchers? Will it remain stored in a stockpile? The individual inquires if it will be traded inside the illicit market. It is difficult for me to conceive that there is such a high level of control over the situation, to the extent that all resources will be recovered once the conflict ceases. Historical evidence implies that weapons will eventually be acquired by individuals or groups that want to misuse them, hence exacerbating the cycle of violence. According to Nie Brian, there is a complete lack of control over the outcome of the situation. A portion of the weaponry that was previously transferred from Europe in previous years ultimately found its way into the possession of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. All firearms possess unique identification numbers, although it is very improbable for a rebel combatant in present-day Sudan to pause and conscientiously verify their firearm's serial number in order to ensure compliance with the necessary standards for receiving such weaponry. The majority of the financial support and weapon supplies from the United States to Ukraine are being provided in the form of grants under the government's Security Assistance Program. Consequently, American taxpayers are primarily responsible for covering the costs associated with these endeavors, potentially diverting resources away from other domestic concerns. However, a portion of the assistance is also being provided through direct commercial sales, a mechanism through which American corporations directly sell arms to foreign groups. According to Analyst News, the United States Department of State is responsible for conducting thorough evaluations of licenses before to authorizing weapon sales. However, it has been seen that such evaluations are seldom carried out in reality. As reported by Homestead, historical evidence indicates that weapons are certain to get into the possession of individuals or groups that want to misuse them, so exacerbating the cycle of violence. A significant volume of weaponry is being traded globally, with a mere 1% of the corresponding licenses subject to scrutiny by the State Department. The purpose of this examination is to verify the identity of end users and prevent any instances of misuse or exploitation. Indeed, several armaments sent to Ukraine and its affiliated nations have already been discovered in areas of war outside the immediate vicinity. According to Homestead, the lack of weapon monitoring in our international shipments hinders our ability to determine the proportion of these weapons now deployed in active combat zones. However, it is evident that these occurrences have been seen in locations such as Nigeria inside the Sahel area, which has been marked by persistent warfare. According to the speaker, significant illicit markets for weaponry proliferated After the 2011 military intervention in Libya led by the United States and NATO, with the objective of ousting Muammar Gaddafi. This development subsequently contributed to the escalation of further wars. According to the speaker, a considerable quantity of weaponry being funneled into Ukraine is finding its way into other war zones worldwide, hence posing long-term consequences for many victims. In a statement made by the President of Nigeria in the previous year, it was said that the Ukraine conflict functions as the primary supplier of weaponry to Boko Haram militants operating inside the Chad Basin region. According to Homestead, there have been instances of firearms being discovered in white nationalist groups throughout Scandinavia, as well as in Ukraine and its allied nations. The aforementioned outcome is an inevitable consequence of the ongoing conflict. Regardless of one's stance on the issue of Ukraine, it is undeniable that the events in question are now unfolding. The video concludes at this point. I express my gratitude for your viewership and anticipate our future encounter in the subsequent video. If you find this video enjoyable, kindly consider subscribing to the channel, sharing it with your acquaintances, and expressing your appreciation by giving it a thumbs up. The user's content does not provide enough information to be revised in an academic way. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the individuals who have shown their support and admiration for this particular video. We really appreciate your ongoing viewing. Farewell and may you have a pleasant day.